take attendance. Oh, there's Tom. Okay. Thank you. All right, so we will begin with our public comment period. Folks from the public are allotted up to 2 minutes to speak on any item on the agenda. We did not have anyone sign up ahead of time for our public comment period. Is anybody out in the gallery wishing to make public comment to this body related to an item on the agenda? Seeing none, so we will conclude the public comment period. I have a proposed consent agenda. It is, I believe it's everything except committee items 1, which is RS 2024-288. Committee item 8, which is BL 2024-254. Committee item 9, which is BL 2024-258. Does anyone have anything to bump from consent before I go through and read all of the captions? All right, seeing none, I'm going to start reading the captions for the consent agenda. All right, first on consent, we have committee item 2. This is RS 2024-313 by Coop and Gamble and Parker. This authorizes GS Nashville Hotel Owner LLC and Graystar Real Estate Partners LLC by and through its subsidiary GS 19th and Broadway Apartments LLC to construct and install aerial encroachments at 1810 Broadway and 110 19th Avenue. Committee item 3, this is RS 2024-314 by Coop and Gamble and Parker. This authorizes 901 MLK LLC to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 901 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Committee item 4, this is RS 2024-315 by Porterfield and Parker. This approves a contract between the Metropolitan Government and Guthrie Sales and Services Company, Incorporated, for the provision of SSI aeration, Limitorque, Brentwood Industries Polychem, General Rubber Products, parts and services for the Central and Dry Water Reclamation Facility. Committee item 5, this is RS 2024-316 by Porterfield, Gamble, and Parker. This approves supplement number 2 to an intergovernmental agreement by and between the State of Tennessee, Department of Transportation, and the Department of Water and Sewerage Services to construct PIN number 105766.02, State Route 11, Nolensville Pike, from north of Mill Creek to near State Route 254, located in Davidson County, Tennessee. Committee item 6, this is RS 2024-317 by Coop and Gamble and Parker. This amends ordinance number 2023-1801 to authorize the Metropolitan Government to abandon sanitary sewer manhole and to accept additional sanitary sewer manholes, lowering of existing sanitary sewer main, and lining of existing sanitary sewer manholes for 2 properties located at 30 and 90 Peabody Street, also known as Peabody Union Sewer. Committee item 7, this is RS 2024-319 by Huffman, Coopin, Vo, and others. This is a resolution requesting the NDOT and the Department of Parks and Recreation establish and implement a wildflower program to plant indigenous wildflowers and perennial and annual plants native to Middle Tennessee in Nashville and Davidson County. Committee item 10, this is BL 2024-262 by Coop and Gamble and Parker. This authorizes the Metropolitan Government to accept a new public sanitary sewer manhole for property located at 400 Hume Street, also known as Tennyson, Germantown, 4th and Hume. Committee item 11, this is BL 2024-263 by Toombs, Gamble, and Parker. This authorizes the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing public water main and to accept new public water main and relocation of a public fire hydrant assembly for property located 210 Cumberland Bend. Committee item 11, this is BL 2024-264 by Gamble and Parker. An ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to accept new public sanitary sewer main, public sanitary sewer manhole, and easement for property located at 2345 Rocky Fork Road, Nolensville, in Williamson County, also known as Courtner Subdivision. Committee item 13, this is BL 2024-265 by Toombs, Gamble, and Parker. This authorizes the Metropolitan government to abandon existing public water and sanitary sewer mains and to accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assembly, and sanitary sewer manholes for property located at 325 West Trinity Lane, also known as Madison Trinity Apartments. Committee item 14, this is BL 2024-266 by Gamble and Parker. This authorizes the Metropolitan government to accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at 3549 Brick Church Pike, also known as Bell Arbor Phase 7. Committee item 15, this is BL 2024-267 by Kimbrough, Gamble, and Parker. This authorizes the Metropolitan government to accept a new public sanitary sewer manhole for property located at 1612B County Hospital Road. Committee item 16, this is BL 2024-268 by Bradford, Gamble, and Parker. This authorizes the Metropolitan government to abandon existing public water main, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements, and to accept new public water main, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for property located at 1 Terminal Drive, also known as BNATARI. Committee item 17, this is BL 2024-269 by Gamble, Parker, and Vaux. This authorizes the Metropolitan government to abandon existing public water main and to accept new public water main for property located at 600B Southgate Avenue. And that is all the items on the consent agenda. Does anything need to come off of the consent agenda? Could we get a motion and a second on the consent agenda, please? All right, properly moved and seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? Thank you. All right, so that brings us back to resolutions. We have, I believe, one resolution on for consideration. This is RS 2024-288 by Gamble, Johnston, Druffel, and others. A resolution requesting that the Metro Planning Department, Metro Department of Codes and Building Safety, Historic Preservation Offices, Metro Water Services, and NDOT to conduct the necessary technical studies as determined by the departments to provide a comprehensive analysis of recommended changes to the Metropolitan Code of Laws that would increase allowable density in Nashville and Davidson County and make recommendations regarding land use policy, which incorporates affordable and workforce housing strategies that can be supported by existing and planned infrastructure. Do we have a motion on the resolution? And a second. All right, properly moved and seconded. I see we have an amendment in the packet. I'll go to the amendment sponsor for a brief explanation and a potential motion.
Thank you, Chair. So we need some zoning reform in the city, and we need to make sure that we can get that done, and that's why I support this resolution. I believe that it will result in our ability to execute on the agreed upon policies within Nashville Next, specifically with middle density housing. The analysis in this resolution, sponsored by Councilmember Gamble, is going to provide the guidance that we need to make decisions about density in the county. And I'm supportive of providing Metro departments with the tools and resources that they need to be successful, which includes enough time for them to do this work. It's a good resolution that's going to provide us a lot of good information about what we can do to drive affordable housing in the city. And so I want to go as fast as we can. So what this amendment does is it increases the delivery date. Instead of August 1st that's in the resolution, it changes it to March 31st. If the departments need additional time, the planning department will coordinate that information and come to us no later than March 1st of next year, and they'll get a 90-day extension if needed. So that's up to 30 days prior than the original resolution includes. This amendment is supported by the planning department. It's a friendly amendment to the bill sponsor as well. So with that, I seek approval.
All right, we have a motion on the amendment. We have a second. All right, the amendment is properly moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on the amendment specifically? We'll have an opportunity to discuss the bill as amended in a moment. Councilmember Cash, you are recognized.
I think this is fine with me. I just wonder what triggers the 90 days? Is it just automatic, or do we have to vote to give an extra 90 days?
A letter from planning.
So they just say, hey, we're not going to hit March 31st. We need 90 more days, and that's that.
It doesn't require approval of this body.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion on the amendment? All right, we will take a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? Thank you. All right, we are now on the bill as amended. It's moved as amended and seconded. We have the amendment, the resolution sponsor, who's not a committee member. Would you like to be recognized? That's okay. Thank you. Anybody wishing to be recognized on the resolution as amended? Seeing none. All right. Well, let's take a vote on the resolution as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any not voting? All right. We recommend approval as amended. Thank you. Okay, next we have a bill on second reading. This is BL 2024-254 by Hancock, Huffman, Horton, and Webb. This amends Title 15 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws relative to infrastructure investment for off-site construction. We have, could we get a motion on the bill, please? All right, properly moved and seconded. We have the lead sponsor here with us, who's not a committee member, but I will recognize the lead sponsor if you would like to offer your amendment or give an explanation of what the bill does. Give me 1 second. There you are. All right, Councilmember Hancock, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Parker. So the main reason behind this particular bill, and I'll speak to the amendment as well, is to offer some transparency to the public when they're trying to do developments. Particularly the smaller developers are often surprised by costs of extending sewer or water lines, or where they have to run them alongside or around and about near their property. And so this would help with transparency for those particular individuals. I have a situation in my district where someone invested in a 4.5-acre piece of property and moved 5 families to Nashville specifically because they wanted to build a family compound there. And then later they found out the extent of the infrastructure they would have to build. Didn't realize that ahead of time. It wasn't really transparent to them. And so now they've divested their interest in that property, and all of their separate children have moved elsewhere. So I'm hoping to actually allow some more housing by making this transparent, upfront, and fair to everyone. The amendment is because I did allow this to be seen by a couple of different departments prior to running it on council, and we had a broad swath of changes that I had our council help make, and there was an accidental deletion of a couple of paragraphs that needed to be added back in, and we just realized that this weekend. Or council did. Director Darby.
So Director Darby was saying that it's small portions, and yeah, I would agree that the amendment is, I would call it housekeeping in nature or corrective in nature. So do we have a, let's consider the amendment first. Do we have a motion on the amendment from a committee member? All right, the amendment's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion on the amendment specifically? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Any against? Any not voting? Thank you. Okay, so now we have the bill as amended before us, or the bill as amended before us. I had a couple of questions about this, and I see some folks from Water in the back, and I know we have Tom Cross. I see Councilman Bradford. I'll put you in the queue. So as I understand this proposal, it would allow for sort of a participation agreement to be negotiated between a developer and Metro Water Services for reimbursement of costs of extension of a system or building additional capacity beyond what the particular development might require so that other folks can tap into that. And that I appreciate the problem that we're looking at here and the sponsor's willingness to tackle that. So my question is, where does the money that would reimburse a developer for eligible expenses, where do those funds come from? And I see Mr. John Honeysucker in the back, if I will. If you'd please introduce yourself, sir.
Yes, good afternoon. John Honeysucker, Assistant Director of Waste Services. I want to first make sure that the constituents understand and the council that no ratepayer dollars are used for this particular project. And in regards to your question, Councilman, I would like to see if Attorney Tom Cross could answer that.
Yes, sir. I'll go over to the administration table. If Mr. Cross, if you'd please introduce yourself.
I'm Tom Cross with Metro Legal. And to answer the question, as I read, the pointer in the bill is to tapping fees. And Mr. Honeysucker's right. Those are not rate-derived charges. When you connect to either a water or sewer line, you have to pay a fee for that.
And if I may, my understanding of where we've got those tap fees set today is that they are, roughly commensurate with, what it costs our folks to go out and inspect a connection and to review a connection to make sure it's safe and effective and isn't going to cause problems. And so I guess, if that bucket is already, that fee is already going to a bucket to fund those inspections, how are we getting reimbursement for the cost of installing additional infrastructure out of that particular funding source?
I'm not sure I can answer that question for you. The pointer is to tapping fees, and you're right that the fees like that are supposed to be pegged to the average cost of providing the service that the fee is charged for, just as it would be for codes, an inspection charge for a permit fee, that kind of thing. So they do accumulate some money there over the course of a fiscal year, but I take the question to be if that's merely offsetting their costs of operation, where's the money left to reimburse the developer?
That is precisely my concern. So I guess to be a little clear, my understanding is we're collecting these tapping fees and they're roughly covering our cost of going out and inspecting and blessing these connections. If we used every penny of that to reimburse developers, then we're not covering our costs to go out and inspect and bless these connections. So that would be like an unfunded activity of our water department. And then I also am concerned that even if we gave every dime from that bucket toward reimbursement, it wouldn't really, over the course of 15 years, add up to cover these participation agreement reimbursement structures. So does anyone have any, I'm leaning one way here, but I'll go to Councilmember Horton.
Thank you for this, and thank you for the councilmember for bringing this legislation. I think it's very useful, and I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of it. I'm not sure I entirely understand the concerns that were just discussed. So I was wondering if you may be able to re-articulate those perhaps as simply as possible.
Thank you, Councilmember. So what's proposed here is a mechanism for establishing terms of like a reimbursement. If I go spend 200 grand running a new line, and that 200, I guess, goes above and beyond what would be required just for my project. So the idea is that other folks will connect to that in the future, and that we're going to use those tap fees, those connection fees, to reimburse me for what I did there, 200, right, 200K. Those tap fees are really pegged to cover the cost of our folks going out to inspect and bless these taps, these connections to that system. They're not designed today to support reimbursement of hundreds of thousands of dollars of infrastructure potentially. So my concern is, one, that if we use those fees to fund the reimbursements, we're not covering our costs on the folks going out there to inspect and bless these connections. And then my second concern is that those fees, as they are today, just aren't even enough to cover these reimbursements that get negotiated. Is that any clearer?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I don't know if it like negates the benefits that the legislation was bringing, but I understand the concern. Thank you for making that clear.
Okay, thank you. I had Councilmember Bradford in the queue. Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to go ahead and thank the sponsor for bringing this up because I had a similar situation in my district where someone made the investment to buy the property, was looking at relocating his business and creating some jobs in the community, and then only to find out that there's no sewer access and that he would have to spend tens of thousands of dollars in order to connect. And so I really support, and I just emailed the Metro clerk to sign on as a sponsor of this. To the concerns as far as how this will be paid, I'm wondering if two options we could look at: increasing the tapping fee to cover this, or, look at these properties where they may only be generating a couple $100s a year in property tax. Now they're being developed. Now you're looking at double or tripling the property tax. So can we look at the new property tax revenue as a way to pay for this?
So that was looking at the tapping fee itself, and the two options there would be either an across-the-board increase or specific increases that connect to participation agreement covered infrastructure, and then kind of a tax increment financing for these things. Those are certainly interesting considerations, and I'm happy to explore those. I see the folks from water. Do you guys want to jump in? You seem like you'd like to. I think the question on the floor is sort of how do these reimbursements get funded? And if you would please introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, sure. I'm Cyrus Tucci, Chief Engineer at Metro Water. And I think there's maybe a little bit of confusion. The tap fees that we collect are recovering our costs, not only for inspection, as you stated, but also we make taps. We don't allow contractors to make taps. So that's a cost of our forces, whether it's a water or sewer tap, is just to make sure the taps are made correctly and things work properly. Now, I think what you were talking about previously was, if there's an extension that a developer has to do, normally that cost is, if somebody's developing a piece of land, that's borne on them, because we don't participate, we don't pay for extensions unless there's a reason, and we do this already. And I think this bill is solid, or maybe summarizing that. If there's a reason that we need a bigger line when we extend, or there's a capacity that they have to upgrade, and we ask them to make it a bigger line, that's when we enter into a private or into a partnership with a private entity to cost share that. It's not every case, but we do that, and that comes normally out of our engineering and replacement budget, or in our capital budget. So I don't know if I answered your question or made it more confusing.
Well, I understand the cost sharing approach that we take. My understanding of what's laid out in this legislation is more of like a long-term reimbursement up to 15 years for costs incurred to do this kind of work. And my concern, I think it's probably a good idea, an interesting idea, certainly. And I also have issues with developments in my district that this kind of thing could help. But my concern is just that the tap fees being the only source to fund that reimbursement is that those tap fees are, I mean, it's we need to cover our costs of sending our guys out there to do these connections, our guys and gals out there to do these connections. And I just don't know that is that pot big enough to also fund these reimbursements.
No, I mean, I agree with you. The tap fees are meant for cost recovery of making taps, and I think it's not intended for reimbursement of infrastructure that development's putting in.
Okay, thank you, sir. Well, folks, we're getting close to the end of our allotted time here. I see Councilmember Allen is in the queue. We'll go to Councilmember Allen, and then I'll have a motion if not.
It sounds to me like this is sort of a formalization of the participation agreement that we've seen happening on a number of projects, and that is paid for out of a capital fund that's already there because Metro Water would have to pay that larger cost when they get around to doing it anyway. And so they figure it's beneficial rather than doing this twice, that while this person is doing that, Metro participate in making it bigger, I think. And so I guess in answer to your question, because I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this as well, could that reimbursement that's discussed here in this bill come from that same capital fund that is currently being used in the participation agreements where essentially the same thing is happening anyway? I mean, to me, this sort of feels like what's happening already. Anyway, we're just putting it into code, and that the same fund that's being used would be used in this case as well.
Yeah, I think there's the cost share model where we kind of help pay up front with a developer to maybe oversize something so that it can support future capacity. And then there's what's laid out here, which is the up to 15-year reimbursement with tap fees. And that's my confusion.
I mean, does it specifically say we'll use the tap fees to pay them back?
So I spent a good amount of time figuring out what the funding source is today, and I don't know the specific language, but tap fees is what we all came up with.
Okay.
Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move a one meeting deferral. And the reason why is I think we need to get some answers around this cost question. This could be a very significant cost. I know that when we had the airport and the Titan Stadium, and those areas where we've needed to upgrade, where we've wanted the infrastructure upgraded, those came before us. So I want to understand if we're talking about parcel by parcel, or if we're talking about big infrastructure projects down an entire street in order to extend. I'd like to understand that scope a bit more. So I guess I would ask the water department and or the administration to give us some color around that in the next 2 weeks. And so with that, I'd like to move a one meeting deferral.
Thank you. One meeting deferral is properly moved and seconded. I mean, I would note that like amendments would be due, what, next Friday? No, not next Friday. About 10 days from now. So that's a, 6 or 8 business days.
Would that give the department and the administration time to take a look at that, I guess?
That's a good question. Amendments would be due on the 29th. Oh, pardon me, sir. Yes, sir.
That would be enough time for us, Council Lady.
Thank you so much. Well, it sounds like, and we can go to the sponsor for, we have a motion for a one meeting deferral on the floor. Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Parker. I'm absolutely in favor of a one meeting deferral. I did want to explain a little bit further that this, and also for the recognition from the public, that this isn't to reimburse developers for things that they are doing for their development. Obviously, they're doing this for a cost, but this is because some developers are asked to build a sewer line from one corner of their development to another lot, to another lot, to another lot to connect to the other side of their development. And it's not necessarily in the confines of their particular development, but it would super be helpful for us to have that sewer line in a larger area. And we do those things with participation agreements, as Councilmember Allen so wisely mentioned earlier, but this is just to kind of codify it a bit more, make it more publicly known so that everyone's walking into this, with their eyes wide open. There are developers, as she mentioned, that are paid, hundreds of thousands of dollars for infrastructure that they put in at their cost that was not directly related to their development. And so this is so that no one's surprised and there's kind of a track to follow for everyone.
Thank you for that explanation and for bringing the bill. All right, all those in favor of a one meeting deferral, please say aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? All right, recommend one meeting deferral. All right, folks, we're going to move along because we are past time here. We got one more item. This is BL 2024-258 by Coupin, Porterfield, Gamble, and Parker. declare surplus, declare surplus of certain real property and authorizing the Metropolitan government's execution and delivery of a master development agreement and ground lease agreements related thereto, an amended and restated site coordination agreement, a campus operations and use agreement, a declaration, and other documents and agreements relating to the development of a portion of the East Bank Stadium campus. Do we have a motion? Properly moved and seconded. I'll go to the lead sponsor for motion.
I would like to move for a one-meeting deferral with a brief comment.
Go right ahead.
So kind of like we talked about last time, we're just wanting to move the bill to April 2nd for a second reading, again, to have some time to unpack any potential changes that we might want to make. We've got the East Bank Committee work session on the 20th, so want to have time to do that deep dive. And so would like to ask for a one-meeting deferral.
Was that ever seconded? Thank you. Excellent. So, yeah, and I'd like to just note, colleagues, even if you're not on the East Bank Committee, if you have interest in this legislation, concerns, considerations, questions, please do. On Wednesday at 4:30, we're going to be down in the jury assembly room. And I appreciate the sponsor. I'm sorry, what, Councilman Bratland? 4:30, jury assembly room. And I appreciate the sponsor deferring to make sure that we had time to continue our consideration of that. And so any discussion on deferral? Not seeing any. All those in favor of a one-meeting deferral? Any opposed? Any not voting? All right, thank you. And I have one quick item under Chair's report. So I'm meeting later in the week with a member of the transit referendum team, and one of the things we're going to discuss is how does this committee want to, this committee and the Metro Council as a whole want to engage with the process. And so I think, you know, we've all had our individual meetings, hopefully by now, with the transit team to talk about our districts and I guess our countywide issues for the at-large folks as well. But specifically for, you know, inviting the transit folks to come before this body, before the whole body, what I wanted to kind of get some feedback from y'all about what you think would be helpful, what you think would be appropriate. Do you think that's something we can squeeze into a scheduled committee day, or is it something that we would want to do maybe a specially called meeting, invite the full council? I see Councilmember Cash. Councilmember Cash, you're recognized.
Thanks. I would say a special meeting would be better, just so we're not rushed and we know what our focus is that day. I don't feel super strongly, but that would be my leaning on your kind of question there. Also, I want to say to this committee, because I did say it to several people in the mayor's office, including Mayor O'Connell himself, that I'd like, we've been reaching out to a lot of different folks to learn about this, and I would just want us to remember that, like, we have, you know, 110,000 children in this city that are, you know, and many of them have needs about getting around. Some have school buses, some use MTA, use WeGo, and I've just suggested this, and it's been well received, I think, at least in the concept phase, that we kind of make sure that we're reaching out to youth. We have a lot of colleges in town too, and I just hope that I'll say this to the other committee members and the other council members, that I hope that we're reaching out to those, you know, high school students and college students to find out their needs about transit, and hope that can be included in the discussion as we go forward. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I had Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. So I think a special called meeting, I agree. I would ask that we maybe do it on the day of committee meetings or something, so that a lot of us are already here. So perhaps, I don't know if transportation infrastructure could be moved to the end of the day and then do that after budget and finance, or however we might be able to do that so that as many people can make it here rather than earlier in the day, so that we can have as many council members as possible. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. Any other comments or feedback on just kind of how we are wanting to interact as a body with the process? Councilmember Ewing, you are recognized.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm in agreement with this. I think it's, we risk giving too watered down attention to this very important citywide issue if we use our committee meetings for that purpose. So I think a special called meeting is very much needed.
Thank you. Councilmember Coopin.
I'm just going to say, agree with all those sentiments of a special meeting dedicated to this purpose.
Councilmember Coopin, thank you. All right, anyone else? We see Councilmember Spain in the back. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. And I agree with everything everyone has said. My only question would be on timing, whether it's, if we should do that now when we're sort of still in the relatively early stages, or if we wait a little further until the plan's a little more baked and we can have a little more meaningful input.
So I'm meeting with Mr. Briggs later in the week, and we'll have this as a discussion item at the next committee meeting, and we can discuss then, because I believe the goal is to have the plan out roughly the end of this month, but it's not me saying that. That's what I heard weeks ago. So I just wanted to have the opportunity to have some initial dialogue here ahead of that meeting that I have scheduled later in the week. So appreciate it, and we'll kind of continue the conversation until we can nail down the best date. All right, I am gonna close it there and call this meeting of Transportation Infrastructure adjourned so we can move on to planning. And I apologize for starting y'all 10 minutes late.